There's a few reasons why Hu Tao's banner could be for you, and this video will address 5 most important things. Taking the most important thing into consideration first would be the 4-star characters, and this time around, we're starting off with Xiangling, whom we all love and have available for free, but the sneaky part MiHoYo has done on their end would be by including the same element character as the featured 5-star, which is actually pretty insane and can give a massive head start for those who are new to the game and are looking to obtain their first 5-star character, or at the same time, this can also help you strengthen Hu Tao by getting more constellations of Xiangling. And that's the thing, even if in early days, Xiangling worked extremely well together with Crescent Pike as your main DPS, her true calling is to be your support damage dealer, and this only becomes more important once you put her in with another pyro character to trigger various benefits like the bonus resonance and of course improving energy regeneration for everyone who is pyro. And even just by getting her first constellation, you will unlock something that not only Hu Tao but every other pyro damage dealer will appreciate, and that's by lowering enemy resistances to this particular element. But if you're already on your way to finishing all Xiangling's constellations, there's a big surprise waiting for you, and it's going to be the awesome 15% damage increase when Pyronado is active. And let's not forget this burst lasts way longer thanks to its 4th constellation. So to keep it short, Xiangling is currently one of the top pyro support characters, and whether you're going for Hu Tao or have some other pyro damage dealer, she's going to be massively helping out with your team's damage output. And this doesn't even take into account the fact that you can trigger melt or vaporize that are currently dominating elemental reactions. If you've seen our previous videos, then you already know that Xingqiu is currently a beastly support character that can transform any of your damage dealers into a superhero thanks to his burst, and surprisingly enough, we're actually seeing him show up quite early just after Ganyu's banner has ended, where he previously has graced us with his presence. Now looking at him specifically in terms of supporting your Hu Tao, there's actually a sneaking thing about their combination, and the biggest thing to keep in mind would be his passive talent that's going to heal Hu Tao whenever his Hydro Blade shatters, and this could reduce her damage output because she depends on a certain health threshold to unleash the full potential of her elemental burst. Now how this will actually work during battles is something that everyone will need to test and figure out for themselves. This might not have such a huge impact as you would think, but it will be interesting to see them work together. But luckily, this bookworm works flawlessly with nearly every character, so gaining more constellations of him won't be a bad thing, and just by going through them, you should already get a good impression that he is all about dishing out as much damage support as possible with stuff like his last constellation or even the second one, where he reduced the enemy's hydro resistance. So besides the one small concern when it comes to pairing him up with Hu Tao, he's actually one of the best 4-star characters you can obtain from this banner, not to mention his constellations, and if you still don't have him or want to power him up even more, this could be the best time for you to wish. The final of the 3 4-stars, Chongyun, could be a sleeper hit when used together with Hu Tao, and that's mainly due to her elemental skill, which infuses her attacks with pyro, but doesn't allow any other outside sources to modify this infusion while the duration lasts. So in this case, Chongyun's elemental skill will not be able to infuse her attacks with cryo while she's using her skill, and that's actually a very good thing, since this means she can take full advantage of the melt reaction. And oftentimes, this popsicle boy gets overlooked because of his conflicting ability to infuse melee attackers with these cryo powers, which currently aren't that great, since you usually build characters, artifacts, and weapons based on their own strengths and weaknesses, and not by depending on other teammates. But what's even cooler about this exorcist is that he can maintain a healthy dose of bursts and skills in rotation, thanks to low cooldown and low burst costs, not to mention his attacks target a wide area, so marking as many enemies with cryo as possible, and then switching over to Hu Tao or any other pyro damage dealer for this matter, and then triggering melt is a beautiful result you can achieve. So if you're in the mood of melting your enemies with Hu Tao or using Chongyun for many other team applications like freeze comps, he's definitely a welcome addition to this banner. Also, we're going to be covering a lot more crucial info about Hu Tao, so make sure to follow us on Twitter, link in the description. If Diluc and Child decided to have a child, then this would be their result. This is basically the result of our ability to mark enemies with a Blood Blossom, which hasn't yet been fully disclosed how much damage it does to your enemies, but the name itself suggests it's not going to be pretty. And for the Diluc part, the very same elemental skill also infuses her attacks with pyro, just like you would get from his elemental burst, so in result, we're starting to get characters that combine several pre-existing gimmicks. Now it goes without saying, but she's definitely looking to be one of those high-risk, high-reward characters who are going to depend on you fully to maximize their potential by living on the edge, and in this particular case, you will need to keep her health below 50% in order to trigger a more powerful version of her burst, which becomes even more important when you have her signature weapon, the Staff of Homa, equipped. One thing to also keep in mind when she becomes available in trial runs would be the fact that you get more elemental orbs than usual when defeating enemies, so keep this in mind when taking into account how fast you can keep reusing her elemental burst. But one good way to hopefully figure this out would be to check out her storyline, which has been announced and will be available once her banner goes live. And if anything has shown us, every time we get a character's storyline, we also get to test their trial versions inside the domains or even open world, so this means there won't be extra elemental orbs floating around, and you can get the full impression without getting misguided. But probably the most important aspect about this banner that doesn't even involve obtaining her would be the new pattern we're starting to see here. And before 1.3, our lives were much simpler and we could plan around each new banner release, but now that things are getting mixed up together, like by only getting a new weapon banner or MiHoYo keeping their mouths shut before the very few days remaining for the announcement, things are not looking great for those who like to prepare. So in this case, if you're still on the fence about Hu Tao, it's going to be harder for you, but the best case scenario would be to wait until at least 1.4 gets announced and we get to see what characters they reveal. Of course, she has been a smash hit with the community, and the anticipation that has been building up about her reveal was surprising to say the least. Still, we're talking about a pyro character that will have no problem adapting to any sort of challenging content in the game, not to mention there's excellent featured 4-star characters that come along with the banner. The only thing that's missing right now about her are the damage multipliers, which brings us to the last point. The last and probably more controversial thing to talk about is the current situation with polearms, and because Hu Tao heavily depends on you either to have critical rate or damage, or at the very least attack percentage, it's going to be difficult to utilize her full potential, since 2 of the free-to-play spears we have provide physical damage bonus, which is not going to be optimal for Hu Tao. And even though we have finally gotten Lithic Spear from the Gacha system, which can now act as a catch-all polearm for any character build, you're going to get limited with team building options if you still want to fully utilize the passive bonus. Not to mention the fact there are currently 13 Liyue characters and 16 from Mondstadt, so there's even less options to choose from than the neighboring region. So one important and probably most sneakiest thing about Hu Tao would be the fact that you actually need a polearm that provides one of the core damage dealer substats, which either is critical rate or damage, with worst case scenario being attack percentage. So this means if you're able to, obtaining Deathmatch from Battle Pass could be one of the options, or even the Blacklift pole from the Star Glitter shop. But to summarize, the decision to include a second pyro character as a featured option is going to be a powerful addition for those who want to build a strong pyro tag team, and it also helps that Xiangling is an extremely competent support damage dealer. Then we have Xingqiu, who might have a conflicting synergy together with Hu Tao, although it's not clear just how much of an impact it will be, but either way, he's still one of the best characters in the game currently, and you won't feel sorry for getting him or his constellations. And of course, for the Popsicle Boy, one lucky thing about his synergy with Hu Tao is that he won't override her elemental infusion, so you can use him together without fearing that cryo buff, and thanks to his fast disposal of bursts, he's going to be a great choice for many. Finally, for the lady that will put her enemies 6 feet under, she definitely feels like a mix between several gimmicks we already have in the game, and her risk-reward playstyle is going to be a welcome addition to the game, so now we only have to wait and find out what her damage multipliers will be. Let us know in the comments if you will be summoning for Hu Tao and how many Primogems you have saved up. Also, make sure to subscribe to us by hitting the bell notification on and gently pressing the like button. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, where we will try to bury Chi-Chi using Hu Tao. Thank you for watching us.